the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the MCU as most people know it by. We all love it, and we're patiently waiting for every new thing that's coming out. Most recently will be the season finale of Moon Knight and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which seems to be the direction that the MCU is going into, the multiverse. As we've seen with Spider-Man No Way Home and Loki, not in that order, the MCU is branching out into this new universal, multiversal element where they're introducing characters from old movie franchises that we've seen and new characters that we know about from the comics but never really thought would get the day of light in the MCU. And given this new element, I've decided to go back and look at a franchise of movies that very few people know about, those who do probably have forgotten, and then everyone else doesn't know it exists. And that is the Marvel animated movie universe that has spawned about almost a decade ago, actually a little more than a decade ago, with a bunch of films, not too many, but just enough that I found pretty interesting and are what cemented me as a Marvel fan. I still prefer DC over Marvel, that's just me, but these movies are what sold me on Marvel and got me ingrained with these characters and made me like the MCU as a whole. I originally knew nothing about any of these characters with the exception of Spider-Man because I played his games and watched his shows, but these movies really brought me in to these characters and sold me on Marvel as a whole. And today we're starting with, as you've probably seen from the title, Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, or just Doctor Strange as it pops up most of the time when I research it. This is the 2007 animated Doctor Strange movie that focuses on Doctor Strange's origin, and it was personally my introduction to the character of Doctor Strange as a whole. As I mentioned a moment ago, this is the story of how Doctor Strange became the Sorcerer Supreme. It's his superhero origin, if you will, much like the MCU version of the film that we have in live action. Now, this movie very much focuses on Stephen Strange's character more than it does anyone else. Most of the other characters in this story are pretty static, except for the antagonist of the film, who has a heel turn at some point in the movie, Mordo. But for the rest of the film, it very much focuses on Stephen. No other character really gets any sort of development. They're just kind of there to help progress the story forward. And in that regard, it is a fault of the film, but given that this movie is only an hour and 16 minutes and it was the first Marvel animated film that they released, I can give it a little slack. However, when it comes to Doctor Strange, Stephen himself, this movie does a really good job of characterizing him and showing his journey from becoming the jerk dickhead doctor to becoming the all-knowing sorcerer supreme that defends the world from the likes of magic and mischief. And I thought that was really well done. Because you see at the very beginning of the movie, Stephen is just portrayed as basically just a jerk. That's what he is. He's a complete and total dickhead, and you don't really like him. But as the movie progresses, you learn more about his story, and you see him struggle after he lost his hands, and you learn the reason why he became a doctor and how he ended up becoming the way that he was. And that being, his sister had died of a medical illness, a neurological disease that she accrued in her teenage years. Stephen wanted her to find help and get a cure, but no doctor was willing to do so. They kept telling him and his sister that there was no way she could be saved, that even if they did the procedure, it was very experimental and she'd be lucky if she survived. So Stephen took it upon himself to become a neurosurgeon so he could save his sister's life. And he ends up performing the surgery and inevitably failing, and his sister ends up dying. And ever since then, Stephen blamed himself for everything that happened to his sister. He couldn't forgive himself for letting her die, and after that, he closed himself off to the world. He didn't want to help anybody. He only viewed money as the only thing that he could care about, because he didn't want to feel that pain again. It wasn't that he was incapable of helping people. It was that mentally there was a brick wall that was stopping him from helping people and becoming a better version of himself. And that's what he learns when he meets the sorcerers. He travels to Tibet believing that they're just going to fix his hands, and then he learns about magic, and they force him to literally and metaphorically tear down the brick wall that's blocking his mind and stopping him from becoming a better person. And I really love that. In the MCU version, we get Stephen, he goes there, he wants to get his hands fixed, and then he learns magic and he becomes a Sorcerer Supreme, and that's cool, fine, and dandy. But in this one, Stephen has to go on an emotional arc before he's even able to start learning magic to become the Sorcerer Supreme. And even after he starts learning magic, he doesn't know he's going to become the Sorcerer Supreme. And I like the reason why he becomes Sorcerer Supreme in this rather than in the MCU. In the MCU, it's alluded to that the Ancient One knew that Stephen was going to be the Sorcerer Supreme, and I kind of didn't like that Chosen One aspect. But in this movie, it's that Stephen does not care about the Sorcerer Supreme. He doesn't even know what it is, and because of his kind heart and his unwillingness to become the sorcerer, he gets the job because he doesn't care about it. He just cares about helping people. He's removed his mental block that stopped him from helping others. He's bettered himself, and that's why he ends up becoming the Sorcerer Supreme by the end of the movie. And I truly do love this story. Seeing Stephen go from being a total jerk to hitting his lowest point, actually begging people for help, receiving it, and then learning to better himself and becoming the super powerful, awesome Doctor Strange that we know from the movies and in the comics is fantastic. This movie does a really good job of depicting Stephen Strange in this light. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the other characters in the movies do not get such representation. Every other character in this movie, which I don't really remember any of their names except for Wong and Mordo, none of the other characters in the movie really matter with the exception of Wong. Everyone else literally dies. Only Wong, Stephen, and the other doctor that Stephen knows, that's his friend, they all live. That's it. Every single other character in this movie dies, which is very unfortunate. If this movie had more time, I feel like they could have been fleshed out and I would have cared more about them, but as it stands right now, they all look cool and they have different magic abilities, but as for character-wise, I don't know a damn thing about them, and now they're all dead, so oh well. However, what does matter is something that I just mentioned in that, and that is their magical abilities and their character designs. Every character in this has a unique design to themselves, and they all have their own magic abilities that they use. Mordo manifests swords and enchants them. Wong has mist magic. Stephen is the Sorcerer Supreme and can basically do whatever he wants, but mainly you see him absorb magic most of the time. There's another character who enshrouds himself in like this armor, another one who uses ribbons as whips. Anyway, each of them has their own unique abilities, and that's what makes them cool. It's something I didn't really like in the live-action Doctor Strange, is that for the most part, all of the magicians learn the same thing. They all use the same golden light-based thing, and I didn't particularly care for that form. When I think of magic, I typically think of stuff like Harry Potter, where magic is unique and everyone can do different things, or video games where you get to use magic and learn different things and the spells are cool. That's what I typically see when I think about magic. I see it in a cool and mystical light. And this movie does a great job with that because everyone uses a unique thing. Not every character is going to learn the same thing. Hell, even martial artists who learn the same style end up fighting differently from each other. And I think that's fantastic. I love that way that they introduced each character in this. Like I said, unfortunately, none of them have any character development, so they don't really matter in the end. But in this aspect, I think they did a really good job at handling that, and it does feel better than the live action interpretation. Now, I suppose I should get on to the big bad of the series, Mordo, and how he's kind of mediocre in this, honestly. Mordo is someone who believed that he should be the next Sorcerer Supreme despite having his rash and very dangerous nature of thinking. He gets many of the characters killed in the movie. Actually, he gets everyone killed in this movie pretty much. And he wants to be Sorcerer Supreme, but he isn't deserving of it, so he never gets to become the sorcerer. And because of that, because he feels like he got cheated, he ends up freeing Dormammu and killing all of the other sorcerers, including the original Sorcerer Supreme that we see throughout the course of this entire movie. Eventually, Dormammu sees him as weak and kills him, and that's kind of the end of the story. Mordo is set up to be the bad guy from the very beginning. He's very grumpy and evil looking from scene one of the entire movie all the way to the point where he gets killed at the end of the movie after he has this cool fight with Stephen, which, it's whatever. This movie doesn't really get the time to flesh out everything. The villains, the characters, the only character that really gets fleshed out is Doctor Strange himself, and that is the biggest fault of this entire movie. If it was longer and we got time to flesh out every character, the only character that I don't think needed to be fleshed out was Dormammu. He's just an evil demon god from an alternate dimension. He doesn't need any fleshing out. That is it. He's an evil demon god. If you need more explanation than that, I'm sorry, you're not going to get it. That's all you really need to know about Dormammu. He's just evil, period. So Dormammu and Stephen are the most well-written characters in this movie because Stephen gets all of the character development that fills up most of the screen time of the movie, and Dormammu is just a one-note evil villain. That's it. Everyone else is very underdeveloped, and the little development that they get is not enough to make them compelling in the film, which is highly upsetting. However, at the end of the day, this is the film that got me into Doctor Strange as a character. It is the first Marvel animated film. It's the first one that I saw, obviously, because I saw it in 2008, shortly after it came out in 2007, and I loved it. It sold me on the character of Doctor Strange and really kicked me off into researching more about Marvel characters, because beforehand, all I really cared about was Spider-Man. I had seen a lot of Spider-Man shows and played a lot of his games, but that was it. I was only interested specifically in Spider-Man, and then I saw this, and it really opened my eyes about what the Marvel possibilities are, what these characters are like, and set me on a path that led me to where I am now, where I'm a huge fan, and I love every project that comes out in the MCU. So, yeah, that is Doctor Strange, or Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, as it's called in some researches if you look it up online. Sometimes it says Doctor Strange, other times it says Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme. I don't know. One of those is correct. Either way, Doctor Strange is the main forefront of the movie, so it doesn't really matter, now does it? Before I head off, there's just one final thing that I need to address, and it is the most important thing in this entire video, and it's that animated Doctor Strange from 2007 has way more drip than MCU Strange. I'm sorry, Benedict Cumberbatch, you know, you try. I do like the fact you have a living cape and everything like that. That's cool, but like, you ain't got sauce like animated Doctor Strange. I mean, like, look at this dude. He dripping from head to toe, and then when he adds the cape, he just looks even more fire. Like, Benedict Cumberbatch ain't got nothing on animated Strange, bro. I'm sorry. You have to take and hold this L, bro, because you may have drip, but animated Strange got the sauce. I'm sorry. That's how it is, bro. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and you made it to the end. If you did like it, please leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what you thought of this Doctor Strange movie. If you'd like me to do the other Marvel animated movies, which I'm gonna do anyway, but you know, hey, let me know if you would like me to do the other Marvel animated movies. So that being said, I'm the innocent villain, and remember folks, you're innocent till proven villainous, and I will catch you in the next one.